It's easy for me to say, hey, Kings, improve from good to great. Go from playoff team to championship contender. But how do they actually accomplish that? Well, on today's Locked On Kings podcast, I've identified 6 individual improvements that marquee Kings players can make that I believe would turn the Kings into a championship contender. It's right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10 News. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, and Davion Mitchell. Those are 6 marquee Sacramento Kings players. And for each of those players on today's show, I have identified one major area of individual improvement for them to make, backed by numbers that would suggest that that's what would really help turn the Sacramento Kings into championship contenders. Now, to be clear, these are not the only improvements that these players need to make. But if I were working in the analytics department of the Sacramento Kings, which would never happen because I don't know half of what those people know, just based off of my understanding of the numbers, spending literally 4 hours today looking at the numbers, looking at averages in the league, comparing individual Kings players to positional comparisons, top of the league, bottom of the league, where they're at, etc. These are the things that I have identified, one thing for each one of these 6 players that they can do that would help turn this team into a contender. Now, I firmly believe that if all 6 of these players were to accomplish all 6 of these improvements, then I think the Kings are a contender as early as next season. That's a massive ask. And you're going to hear by some of these improvements that these are not easy tasks for these players to accomplish. They're definitely achievable, but they're not easy. So let's dive into these. Let's go through them, and we're going to start with De'Aaron Fox. The individual improvement that De'Aaron Fox needs to make for the Sacramento Kings to become a championship contender, getting his defensive rating from 117 to 113 with the same assignments. That's an important point, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. Just a reminder, defensive rating, the lower the rating, the better. Offensive rating, the higher the rating, the better. And because of more scoring in the NBA, inflated scoring, things like that. The NBA is a scoring league. We're only seeing the average defensive rating go up and up and up and up and up with every single season. So 117, 113, that was terrible 5-10 years ago. Now it's not great, could definitely be better, but it's not as horrendous as it may have seemed in the past. But here's some context for you. The best defensive rating amongst guards, point guards specifically, in the NBA last season was Alex Caruso with 109. That's really, really good. But that 113 number is not a number that I've pulled out of the hat. It's a pretty average, good to average number amongst top guards in the league. And again, the big difference here is Fox dropping those 4 points from 117 to 113 in his defensive rating, which is a big jump. It's a big drop to make. It's a big level of improvement, while having the same assignments. Now, this 113 number I know is very achievable for Fox, not just because I believe he's a damn good defender, but because he's done it before. He averaged a 113 defensive rating his rookie season. His sophomore season, second year in the league, he averaged a defensive rating of 111. Again, from that point to this point, offenses have only gotten better and only more points are being scored, right? So those numbers aren't exactly one for one comparable to one another, but it's a number that Fox has at least accomplished before. It's something he's capable of doing. Here are some point guards with a 113 defensive rating from last season. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Malcolm Brogdon. 5 names right there that all had a defensive rating of 113. How many of those 5 names do you think De'Aaron Fox is a worse defender than? I'll give you Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. maybe Malcolm Brogdon, but I think De'Aaron Fox is the second best defender on this list. Out of those 6 players, including Fox, I think Fox is number 2. But defensive rating says he's 4 points worse than all 5 of those players. Why? Because of Fox's defensive assignments. You think Luka Doncic is guarding the best player on the opposing team, especially at the end of the game? Think James Harden is? That sentence alone is laughable. James Harden doesn't play defense. No, they're not. De'Aaron Fox, and he frequently pointed this out last season, Fox is the guy that if the Kings are playing the Golden State Warriors, Fox is on Steph Curry in crunch time. If the Kings are playing insert team here. If the Kings are playing the Dallas Mavericks, Fox was on Kyrie Irving. If the Kings were playing the Los Angeles Clippers, Fox was sometimes on Kawhi or sometimes on Paul George at the end of games. Like, Fox was the guy that was taking on that defensive assignment in the fourth quarter. And he showed in the fourth quarter that he could be one of the best defender guards in the league. Mike Brown has challenged him to be more of that defender and have more of that defensive presence for full 48 minutes, or basically any time that he's in the game, have that same kind of defensive impact. So De'Aaron Fox, if he can accomplish a 113 defensive rating, the same defensive rating as Russell Westbrook or James Harden or Luka Doncic, while having the defensive assignments that he's having, guarding the opposing team's best guard, then the Sacramento Kings are a significantly better basketball team. Here's another number to kind of reflect this. Fox had a 1.8 defensive win share last season, or 1.8 defensive win shares. The defensive win share is the estimated number of wins contributed by a player due to defense. Here are 2 of the top guards in terms of defensive win share. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 3. He was amazing last season. He was unbelievable last season, one of the best in terms of win shares, period. And Marcus Smart, who we largely consider one of the best defensive guards in the league, multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, or is it multi-time? He's won it at least once. He had a defensive win share last season of 2.7. Fox was in the top 10 in win shares, period, for point guards, which is combining offensive and defensive win share. He's in the top 10. His offensive win share of 5.5 was top 8 in the league. So we already know he's one of the top offensive guards. But if he improves that defensive win share from 1.8 to, let's say, 2.2, let's say he gets to the 2 mark or gets above it, the Sacramento Kings are winning more games. Fox is a significantly better defender while guarding the opposing team's best guard a lot of the time. Yeah, that puts the Sacramento Kings in a much better position to not only become a championship contender, but to address their defensive issues. Fox is not going to solve the Kings' defensive issues himself. And he's certainly not going to solve the defensive issues overnight. But Fox is capable of improving as an individual defender in this way, and that certainly gets the ball rolling, certainly gets Sacramento momentum to having a improved team defense to just be average. And then when you need a defensive specialist late in games, you can rely on De'Aaron Fox. You can go to Davion Mitchell, who we're going to talk about later on in this podcast. It gives the Kings more options and Mike Brown more options in that way. All right, Domantas Sabonis. What is the significant individual improvement that Domantas Sabonis needs to make for the Sacramento Kings to become a championship contender? This one might surprise you, kinda. Improve deep twos, which is typically 16 feet to the three-point line. Improve his deep two shooting percentage from 44% to just shy of or at 50%. Now, the Golden State Warriors were actually giving Domantas Sabonis a lot of mid-range jumpers. Around that 16-foot range was where Sabonis was getting a lot of his looks in the playoffs. It was a gamble that the Golden State Warriors made that was effective, right? It worked. They said, we're going to believe, or we're going to trust that Domantas Sabonis will not kill us with a mid-range jump shot as much as he would with enough space to run his dribble handoff game and being physical down in the paint with one-on-one matchups without the defense crashing on him. They took that gamble. It absolutely paid off for him. But I was surprised to find out that statistically among centers, Sabonis was a top mid-range shooter, which is 10 to 16 feet. He was a top mid-range shooter in the NBA. He shot 51% from that range during the regular season. Only 5 centers in the NBA shot a higher percentage from that range last season, and only 2 of them shot more frequently than Sabonis did. Now, Sabonis does not shoot at a frequent rate from mid-range or long two range. He doesn't. But he shot more deep twos, 0.5%. 5% of his shots were deep twos last season. 4% of his shots were mid-range jumpers, that 10 to 16 range. So Sabonis has a better shooting percentage from that 10 to 16 range than he has from the 16 to three-point range, which doesn't surprise anybody because the further Sabonis gets away from the basket, we know he's not that great of a shooter. But he's obviously getting more looks and taking more shots from that deep two range. So taking that into account, the fact that he's getting more looks from there and that shooting percentage is lower, if he were to raise that more than his mid-range jumper, if he were to raise that mid-two percentage more than the 10 to 16 foot range, which again, those 10 to 16 footers, he was getting a lot of those looks in the Golden State Warriors series. If he can overall improve his long two-point shooting, which is considered to be the least effective shot in basketball, so naturally that's the shot the defenses are going to try and give you as much as possible. If he can improve that from 44% to around 50%, that's a significant jump for him, and that is a high enough jump, in my opinion, to where defenses have to either give up on that gamble or accept that it's not going to be nearly as effective as it was for the Golden State Warriors in their playoff series. 14 centers shot better from deep two than Sabonis did last season, but Sabonis, out of those 14 centers, shot the 5th highest frequency. So again, there are guys in the league that are certainly better, centers in the league that are better from that range than Sabonis, but Sabonis is getting more looks because of what defenses are giving him and because of how the Sacramento Kings play with that dribble handoff offense, which is typically around or above the key. Those are the looks that he's getting, and he's taking more than the more efficient shooters from that spot. 50% from deep twos would be top 10 amongst centers, and best in the league at the same rate. So if he shoots at the same frequency, if he continues to shoot 5% of his overall, rounded up 6% of his overall shots in an entire season, he stays at that frequency from that deep two, but hits 50% or around 50% instead of the 44%, that's best in the league amongst centers. That would be a significant jump for him. That would have to change a lot of defenses, and I promise you, if he's able to do that, the way the Golden State Warriors guarded Sabonis, that ain't going to work anymore. Again, I still have more to come. I got Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, and Davion Mitchell for you and the individual improvements that they are going to make. I will tell you more about them after I tell you about FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with an incredible offer from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on whatever, a game line, a prop, a player line, whatever it may be. You bet $5, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And on top of that, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and from YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel because NFL season is finally here. The app is easy to use and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. And of course, when NBA season comes around, FanDuel is excellent for all your NBA action too. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Keegan Murray. We've talked a lot this offseason about the jump that the Sacramento Kings want Keegan Murray to make. There are a lot of areas of Keegan Murray's game that he absolutely could improve. But the big area is as a go-to scorer, as a reliable scorer, someone who can go and get you a bucket who's not named De'Aaron Fox. The Kings are hopeful that Keegan Murray can be that guy. So what is the major individual improvement for Keegan Murray? I want his dribble pull-ups frequency to go from 10.7% to 15%. What that means is out of all of the shots that Keegan Murray took last season, only 10.7% of them were dribble pull-ups. That number needs to go up to a minimum 15%, in my opinion. Now, it probably should be even higher than that. 60% of Murray's made shots last season were catch and shoot. He's still, for the most part, going to be a catch and shoot merchant because he plays with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. That dribble handoff game, plus the cut and kick out, like he is going to get the majority of his shots without putting the ball on the deck. He's going to catch it, have that good look from three-point range. The Kings are not going to take everything that Keegan Murray did last season as the best three-point shooting rookie in NBA history, at least in terms of total threes made. And they're not going to completely throw that out the window and say, okay, Keegan, we don't want you doing that anymore. Now put the ball on the floor. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you can still get that effective catch and shoot ability from Keegan Murray while also getting an increased ability for him to, whether it's late in the shot clock or in an isolation setup or De'Aaron Fox is out of the game and you just need a guy to put the ball on the deck and go get you a jumper wherever it is on the floor, that's what the Sacramento Kings are looking for from Keegan Murray. Keegan's effective field goal percentage dropped from 61% to 52% when he went from catching and shooting to dribbling. So he was a significantly more efficient shooter with the catch and shoot than he was putting the ball on the deck. He shot 40% from three-point range off the dribble, but that's only 1% worse than his catch and shoot three-pointers. So Keegan has shown an ability, at least from the perimeter, to, when he puts the ball on the deck, whether it's receiving a pass, dribbling once and sidestepping for your defender to fly by and then hitting the shot, Keegan showed that he's capable of doing that. So shooting off the dribble is not a skill that he does not possess. It's something he's capable of doing, and he showed he was capable of doing that from three-point range. But when it came to two-pointers, he actually was widely more efficient off the dribble than catch and shoot. Now, a lot of that is because catch and shoot threes are significantly more common and significantly better looks than catch and shoot twos. You're not going to get a whole lot of catch and shoot twos unless you're running a pick and pop offense and you're the big man, right? There's just not enough room typically in the mid-range to receive a pass for an open mid-range jumper. They happen from time to time, but typically if you're a mid-range scorer, you're scoring the way De'Aaron Fox scores or the way Kawhi Leonard scores or DeMar DeRozan scores, which is pulling up off your own dribble. And he was a much more efficient mid-range shooter off the dribble than he was from or with catch and shoot. He was a 40% shooter off the dribble from two-point range than he was catch and shoot at 33%. He does still have to make quick decisions with the ball, though. And I think this is an important aspect. Just because you want Keegan Murray to create more for you and go and get you a bucket more doesn't mean you want him to bring the offense to a screeching halt. You want Keegan to put the ball on the deck, but you want him to follow that pillar of Mike Brown's offense, which is 0.2 seconds, right? Mike Brown is all about make a quick decision. Decide if you're going to pass the ball, shoot the ball, put the ball on the deck, make a decision in 0.2 seconds, and go. So you don't want Keegan Murray dribbling the air out of the ball. Keegan shot 62% or had a 62% effective field goal percentage when touching the ball less than 2 seconds. When he had the ball in his hands and made a quick decision, he was a very efficient three-point shooter. Again, a lot of that had to do with his catching and shooting from three-point range. When he held the ball for 2 to 6 seconds, that dropped down to 43%. The effective field goal percentage dropped down to 43%. When he held the ball for 6 or more seconds, his effective field goal percentage was 36%, which is horrible. So you want Keegan to put the ball on the deck more. I want him to shoot off the dribble 15+% of the time next season. I think it should be like 15, 20%, especially from mid-range. I want to see Keegan Murray putting the ball on the deck and getting himself some good looks from good spots in that mid-range jumper somewhere. Don't overly rely on that mid-range jumper because, again, it's still the worst shot in basketball. But put the ball on the deck at times when the Kings need you. Even work in the post a little bit more. That's an aspect of Keegan Murray's game that we saw in college that we really didn't see at all last season. And Mike Brown has also talked a lot about aggressively attack the basket. Put the ball on the deck, 1 or 2 dribbles, go up strong and try and finish at the rim, try and dunk on somebody, and at the very least, get fouled and go to the free throw line where you're a pretty solid free throw shooter. Those are the decisions that Keegan Murray can make without holding on to the ball for 3+ seconds. So he can still be this effective off-the-dribble scorer without holding on to the ball for far too long and bringing the Kings offense to a screeching halt. So again, Keegan Murray's individual improvement, dribble pull-ups, the frequency of his dribble pull-ups from 10.7% to 15+%. All right, let's talk about Malik Monk. I want Malik Monk to up his free throw attempts per game to 312. That is not a number that I just pulled out of a hat. I'll explain to you here as we go through this. Malik Monk, you might not have realized this, he had the 12th best free throw percentage in the entire NBA last season. He shot 88, rounded up 89% from the free throw line. Again, 12th best in the league. However, despite being 12th best, he was 83rd in the NBA in free throw attempts. He got to the line 207 times. Now, that was a significant jump from the season before in Los Angeles, where he got to the line 117 times. The 207 is far and away a career high. So he's doing a much better job here in Sacramento getting to the line than he has at any point in his career, and I think he can take it a step further. Of course, the majority of those players that have more free throw attempts than Malik Monk are starters. The ball's in their hands more. They're getting more playing time. They're getting more opportunities. Like Giannis Antetokounmpo leads the league in free throw attempts. We know why. The ball's in his hands so much, and he's constantly attacking the rim. Like, that makes sense. There were 11 bench players with more free throw attempts than Malik Monk. 11 of them. And out of all 11, Malik had the best free throw shooting percentage. What I want is for Malik to continue having the best free throw shooting percentage out of all bench players while getting to the line more than almost all of them. Of those 11 bench players, 6 of them were either shooting guards or secondary ball handlers, like Monk is essentially with the Kings. Those 6 were Ben Mathurin, who got to the line 454 times, Jordan Poole, who got to the line 415 times, Austin Reeves, who got to the line 265 times, Norman Powell, who got to the line 277 times, Emmanuel Quickley, who got to the line 248 times, and Tyrese Maxey, who got to the line 213 times. Again, all 6 of those players got to the line more than Malik Monk did. I would argue Malik Monk is better than 4 of those 6 players at least. And Malik was a better free throw shooter than all of them. Now, Ben Mathurin, I think you can throw that one out. Like, Ben Mathurin, even though he's coming off the bench, he's absolutely going to be a star for the Indiana Pacers, in my opinion. So, Ben Mathurin, if you're significantly less free throw attempts than Mathurin, I get it. I'm okay with that. So you take all 6 of those players and take all their free throw attempts and find the average. That number is 312. So get Malik Monk to 312 field goal attempts per game. If he can still shoot around that 88, 89%, be amongst the top of the league, the top of all bench players, he's second to Ben Mathurin and maybe Jordan Poole in free throw shooting percentage out of all those bench players. You want Malik Monk to get to the free throw line more because he's the best free throw shooter on this team. And the way Malik Monk plays, he's capable of doing that. I got 2 more players for you, Kevin Huerter, and I have Davion Mitchell. Those 2 coming up here in just a second. We've spent a lot of time this offseason talking about Kevin Huerter and his peaks and valleys over the course of the regular season. Red hot shooting months, ice cold shooting months. A clear pattern where when he was rested, he shot really well. When he was fatigued, he did not. And to further drive that point home about the importance of consistency throughout an entire season as a shooter and how good that is for a team, let's look at some of these numbers here. The goal for Kevin Huerter, the improvement for Kevin Huerter individually next season, have no more than 2 months where you shot less than 40% from three-point range. Kevin Huerter shot 40% from three-point range last season, period, which was 33rd in the NBA. Here are his shooting percentages by month. We've gone over this before, so I'll speed through it really quick. He shot 53% in October, 41% in November, 37% in December, 37% in January, 29% in February, 51% in March. That's also where the NBA All-Star Weekend and All-Star break is. 25% in April, and shot a woeful 20% in the playoffs. Clear pattern of really, really good start, and then really, 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 really bad, and then break, and up to good, and then really, 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 really bad. Fatigue impacted a lot of that shooting. Of the 32 shooters with a better three-point shooting percentage than Kevin Huerter, only 3 players took more attempts. A lot of the fatigue factor for Kevin Huerter is the fact that with the Sacramento Kings and their offense, he is shooting a boatload of threes, and that is what you want from him. So if he's shooting at the frequency from three-point range that he is shooting, but he is more consistent over the course of the season, that is going to do wonders for the Sacramento Kings. Believe it or not, Kevin Huerter was fourth in the league in terms of, or rather, there are only 3 players that shot a higher shooting percentage than Kevin Huerter at a higher frequency. Keegan Murray shot a higher three-point shooting percentage than Kevin Huerter and just barely had a lower frequency. I thought that was an interesting note. But here, the 3 players that shot or took more attempts and shot a better three-point percentage than Kevin Huerter last season, none of the 3 will surprise you. Number 1 was Klay Thompson. Number 2 was Buddy Hield. Number 3 was Steph Curry. So let's break down their month-by-month shooting. Klay Thompson shot 28% from the three-point range in October. Not great. But 43% in November, 36% from December, 43% in January, 45% in February, 41% in March, 45% in April, down to 37% in the playoffs. Buddy Hield started off 42% in October, 33% in November, 51% in December, 42% in January, 42% in February, 39% in March, 53% in April. He didn't play in the playoffs. Steph Curry, 39% in October, 46% in November, 42% December, 40% January, 42% February, 44% March, 36% April, and then 36% in the playoffs. You're hearing a lot of 40s with these top guys, right? So to me, even though Kevin Huerter averaged 40% from three-point range for the entire season, that number could have and should have been significantly higher. I shouldn't say significantly. Should have been multiple percentage points higher. It really should have been. Because if Kevin Huerter is battling and handling fatigue better to where he is having only 2 months of the season where he's shooting less than 40% from three-point range. He's avoiding those 20s and low 30s. And having those, and he doesn't even have to have a 53% month like he had in October and 51% month like he has in March. Put mid to high 40s in the majority of these months with a couple of like 35, 36, 37%, because there are going to be cold shooting stretches that he goes through. That's just natural. Put a couple of them in there. Kevin Huerter is not only a much more efficient and consistent shooter that significantly is more reliable for the Sacramento Kings, especially when it comes to playoff time. Kevin Huerter is also going to improve to probably like 42% from three-point range, which should be the goal for Kevin next season. I think 42% three-point shooting next season should be Kevin Huerter's goal, and a lot of that comes from a more consistent three-point shooting percentage over the course of the season. All right, let's wrap up with Davion Mitchell here. Again, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. Hope these improvements make sense, and if you want to weigh in on any of these or share your own improvements that you think certain Kings players have to make, doesn't have to be these 6. Share them with me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment sections down below. Finally, Davion Mitchell. We know how good he is on the defensive end. Offensively, far too many times, especially early last season, he looked lost. Some of that blame I put on Davion. Some of that blame I put on Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings for not really finding a way to incorporate him into the offense. Well, looking at the numbers and breaking down the numbers, the improvement that Davion Mitchell needs to make to ultimately be good enough on the offensive end to be able to stay on the floor long enough to make the major impacts defensively that we know he's capable of making. He needs to shoot 8 field goal attempts per game, 5 or more of them within the three-point arc. Davion Mitchell shot 32% from three-point range last season, 31% from three-point range his rookie year. He's not a good three-point shooter. He's not. He's not going to suddenly explode the 36, 37, or 38%. It's not going to happen. If it does, I mean, we should not expect that to happen. The Kings can rely on that to happen for Davion Mitchell to be a good enough player for them to be a championship contender or an impactful player on a contender. That's not going to happen. Let's be realistic. So it's not three-point shooting that you need to demand more from Davion. You want that number to definitely go up, 34%, maybe 35%, especially on wide open threes that he's going to get through sharing the floor with Fox or Monk or whoever he's on the floor with in the Kings offense. But Davion's field goal attempts period plummeted from his rookie season under Luke Walton / Alvin Gentry to last season, his first season under Mike Brown. His field goal attempts dropped from 11 field goal attempts per game to just 5. that reflects how he just did not fit in offensively with what the Sacramento Kings were trying to do. His field goal percentage, total field goal percentage, not three-point, but total field goal percentage did go up, though, from 41% to 45%. His two-point frequency dropped from 62% to 50%, meaning he was shooting, or 62% of his shots his rookie year were from two-point range. Only 50% of those shots last season were from two-point range. Only 38% of Davion Mitchell's shots his rookie season were from three-point range. 49% of his shots last season were from three-point range. The Kings essentially said, Davion Mitchell, your impact on this offense is only as a three-point shooter. And we saw how that worked out. That's why he went from 11 shots to just 5 shots per game. Last season, he took 104 shots in the restricted area, which is that little circle under the basket, essentially layups at the rim. Took 104 shots at the rim, shot 66% at the rim. He took 44 shots in the paint. That's outside of the restricted area, but still in the paint, right? He shot 48%, he shot 52% in the paint. He took 54 shots from mid-range, shot 48% from mid-range. And then he took 197 shots from beyond the three-point arc, where he shot 32%. That's what dragged his percentage down. Davion Mitchell is most effective as a scorer, putting the ball on the deck and attacking the rim and attacking the basket. You have a point guard in De'Aaron Fox who does that significantly better than Davion Mitchell does. Malik Monk also has that element to his game too. You found a way for both of them to effectively attack the basket in your offense. Find a way for Davion Mitchell to do the same. Davion is very effective shooting off the dribble too. He shoots 54% off of one dribble, 53% off of two dribbles, and 51% off of 3 to 6 dribbles. He can handle the basketball and score with the ball in his hands. So stop using him as a primary catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in the Kings with offense. He only shot 35% last season on dribble pull-ups. But a lot of that was because of three-point shooting. Because for dribble pull-up twos, he shot 43%. His dribble pull-up threes, 26%. His three-point percentage in three-point shooting period dragged down his offensive numbers to a horrible low. And to me, the most significant number in there is the fact that his field goal attempts from his rookie season to sophomore season dropped from 11 to 5. I blame Davion Mitchell to some extent for not enforcing himself in the way he likes to play on the offensive end and showing that more in games. I do blame him for that. But Mike Brown and the Kings offense also need to find a way to allow and encourage Davion Mitchell to attack the basket to some extent the same way Fox and Monk get to. Again, I trust Fox and Monk attacking the basket more than Davion Mitchell, but there's no reason to take Davion and his most efficient skill offensively and basically cut it in half and say the majority of the time you're going to be shooting from three-point range where we know you're not as effective. That does not work. And if you're going to continue to run him like that, you're going to have an inefficient offensive player which negates the greatness that he does on the defensive end, because essentially you can't have him in the game as much as you should and want to. 6 individual improvements, 6 achievable individual improvements for 6 different marquee Kings players that I think would turn the Sacramento Kings, or certainly help the Sacramento Kings, become legit championship contenders. What do you think of those 6? Did I confuse the hell out of you? Did I give you a headache? Hopefully not. Hopefully this all made sense. But these are 6 tangible ways that the Kings individually can improve that I think make massive impacts on the overall team success. Again, if you want to weigh in, share any individual improvements that you think different players need to make, send them to me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.